Now, we were on page 372. And this entire passage from O force compelled, fate driven, earthborn race to the gods are still too few in mortal forms is a wonderfully uplifting passage. But after that, you have another passage of great interest. In this poem, Savitri is described in 4 or 5 different places. Once Savitri as seen by Ashwapati, once as Savitri as seen by Narad, once Savitri as seen by Satyavan, various descriptions. Here you have a description of Savitri as seen by her own father. How did Ashwapati see Savitri? On that morning when he heard this voice, and as the voice finished what it had to say, he found, as you can see, the voice withdrew into its hidden skies, but like a shining answer from the gods, approached through sun-bright spaces, Savitri. Savitri was now approaching Ashwapati, and it's a long description, a beautiful description of what Savitri looked like. Advancing amid tall heaven-pillaring trees, apparelled in a flickering colored robe, she seemed burning towards the eternal realms, a bright moved torch of incense and of flame, that from the sky-roofed temple soil of earth, a pilgrim hand lifts in an invisible shrine. Says she looked like an incense stick held in a pilgrim shrine by a pilgrim to the skies. There came the gift of a revealing hour. He saw through depths that reinterpret all, limited not now by the dull body's eyes, new found through an arch of clear discovery, this intimation of the world's delight, this wonder of the divine artist's make, carved like a nectar cup for thirsty gods, this breathing scripture of the eternal's joy, this net of sweetness, woven of aureate fire, transformed the delicate image face became a deeper nature's self-revealing sign. Now, I have no intention of reading it through. I just wanted to point out to you this beautiful passage. This is Savitri as seen by Ashwapati. And it goes on almost towards the end of page 373. It's a fairly longish passage. And now, this is what Ashwapati says to Savitri on page 373, end of almost towards the end. O spirit, traveler of eternity, who comes from the immortal spaces here, armed for the splendid hazard of thy life, to set thy conquering foot on chance and time, the moon shut in her halo dreams like thee. What is it he says to her? Middle of that page. Depart where love and destiny call your charm. Venture through the deep world to find thy mate. Go out into the open world to find the companion of your life. For somewhere on the longing breast of earth, thy unknown lover waits for thee, the unknown. Thy soul has strength and needs no other guide. So the question might arise, how will I recognize this unknown lover who is waiting for me? So Ashwapati says, your soul has that capacity to recognize this person, and you will not need any other guide. Thy soul has strength and needs no other guide than one who burns within thy bosom spars. There shall draw near to meet thy approaching steps the second self for whom thy nature asks. He will be your second self. He who shall walk until thy body's end, a close-bound traveller pacing with thy pace, the lyrist of thy soul's most intimate chords, who shall give voice to what in thee is mute. So Ashwapati also has become very poetic. He says, you will meet this person, he says, who is the lyrist of thy soul's most intimate chords, who shall give voice to what in thee is mute. Then shalt you grow like vibrant kindred harps, one in the beats of difference and delight, responsive in divine and equal strains, discovering new notes of the eternal theme. Then you will be like two harps, responding to the same note. And two harps giving out two different notes. One is this lover of yours, and the other is yourself. One force shall be your mover and your guide. One light shall be around you and within. Hand in strong hand, confront heaven's question, life. When you read these lines, you almost feel Ashwapati knew already what lay ahead. So he leaves these words also, hand in strong hand, confront heaven's question, life. One level you can take it simply mean, together you face life. But he doesn't stop there. Challenge the ordeal of the immense disguise. Challenge the ordeal of the immense disguise called death. You will have to face and challenge the disguise of death. This is what he implies. Ascend from nature to divinity's heights. Face the high gods, crowned with felicity. Then meet a greater God, thyself beyond time. So as you meet this person waiting for you, you will have, that's not the end of it, you will together have a very great thing to perform, that is, ascend from nature to divinity's heights, face the high gods, crowned with felicity, then meet a greater God, thyself beyond time. Now this is what he says. You go out into the open world, your soul will guide you to the person who has been waiting for you, and once you meet him, your life will be fulfilled at one level, but then you both will have to rise much higher and face the challenge. This challenge, he says, challenge the ordeal of the immense disguise. Now, this page also has another beautiful passage which I already read out to you last time. This is on mantra. How does mantra work? About 4 lines from where we left off, there is the passage. As when the mantra sings in yoga's ear, its message enters, stirring the blind brain. We talked about it on the very first day, so you don't want to go into it and explain this once again, and keeps in the dim, ignorant cells its sound. The heart, the hearer understands a form of words, and musing on the index thought it holds, he strives to read it with a laboring mind, but finds bright hints, not the embodied truth. Then, falling silent in himself to know, he meets the deeper listening of his soul. The word repeats itself in rhythmic strains. Thought, vision, feeling, sense, the body's self are seized unutterably, and he endures an ecstasy and an immortal change. This is what a mantra received properly does to the receiver. He feels a wideness and becomes a power. All knowledge rushes on him like a sea, transmuted by the white spiritual ray. He walks in naked heavens of joy and calm, sees the God face, and hears transcendent speech. Unequal greatness in her life was sown. What the poet says at this point is that listening to Ashwapati's instructions worked for Savitri like a mantra. This was her mantra. Depart, go out, the lover is waiting for you. When you meet him, your life will be fulfilled. But then on, there is another greater challenge. Both of you together have to meet. This is the challenge of the immense disguise. This proved to be a mantra for Savitri. And what does a mantra do? This is what Sri Aurobindo describes. So this is how the reference to mantra comes up, and this is what the description is. Now, Savitri, of course, obeys her father and goes out on this quest. Now, this quest is described in Canto 4. It's a beautiful description. First of all, Sri Aurobindo somehow wants to suggest that as Savitri goes out on this quest, she somehow feels this is not the first time she has gone out like this. In her previous births, in her previous avatars also she has gone out like this on a quest. So this is what is suggested. The world ways opened before Savitri. At first, a strangeness of new brilliant scenes peopled her mind and kept her body's gaze. But as she moved across the changing earth, a deeper consciousness welled up in her. As she was moving, she was not no more looking around her from her surface consciousness. A deeper consciousness within her came up, and from that consciousness she began to look around. A citizen of many scenes and climes, she suddenly felt that she was a citizen of many scenes and many climes. She was born on earth several times before. She has been several parts of this world. Each soil and country it had made its home. It took all clans and peoples for her own, till the whole destiny of mankind was hers. So for her, the entire human family was her family. These unfamiliar spaces on her way were known and neighbors to a sense within. Landscapes recurred like lost, forgotten fields, cities and rivers and plains her vision claimed, like slow recurring memories in front. The stars at night were her past's brilliant friends. So when she looked at stars at night, they didn't look new for the first time, as if she was looking at them for the first time. They were like friends she had met several times before. The winds murmured to her of ancient things, and she met nameless comrades loved by her once. So she met many people whom she had earlier met in earlier lives, in earlier avatars, and those people again she met in different form. All was a part of old forgotten selves, vaguely or with a flash of sudden hints. Her acts recalled a line of bygone power. Even her motion's purpose was not new. What she says is, this time of course she was going to seek her life's companion. This is not the first time she has gone out to seek her life's companion. It looked as if earlier, in the earlier avatars also she had gone like this. Even her motion's purpose was not new. Traveler to a prefigured high event, she seemed to her remembering witness soul to trace again a journey often made. This seemed to her a journey she had often made. Now, it's very interesting that Sri Aurobindo should bring this up. She is now saying, she is of course sitting on the chariot. The chariot, there must be a charioteer who is driving the chariot. And the charioteer, I didn't think, had a well laid out plan. There was no Automobile Association of India saying you go here first and then go here, this is the mileage. He just was wandering. as you and I believe, as chance would guide him. And so, what was there? Is it all a chance? Was he going where he liked? Or was there a supreme will guiding even this random journey? And he suggests that there is a supreme will that guides what may look like a random going around. There is nothing like casual here. Casual simply means you are outside God's plan. There is nothing casual here. Everything is decided by Him. That's the hint that he leaves in the next section. A guidance turned the dumb revolving wheels. A guide, it looked as if there was a guidance that was turning the revolving wheels of the chariot, and in the eager body of their speed, the dim masked, hooded Godheads rode, who move assigned to man immutably from his birth, receivers of the inner and outer law, at once the agents of his Spirit's will, and witnesses and executors of his fate. Inexorably faithful to their task, they hold his nature's sequence in their guard, carrying the unbroken thread all lives have spun. Attendants on his destiny's measured walk, leading to joys he has won and pains he has called, even in his casual steps, they intervene. There are these powers, they intervene in what you may see are casual steps. Even in casual steps they intervene. Then the poet once again generalizes, nothing we think or do is void or vain. Nothing we do is vain or void. Nothing we think or do is void or vain. Each is an energy loosed and holds its course. Everything that you do creates an energy, creates a karmic groove, and it leaves a mark. Each is an energy loosed and holds its course. The shadowy keepers of our deathless past have made our fate the child of our own acts. So, what we do today, in most part, is decided by the karma that we have accumulated. The shadowy keepers of our deathless past have made our fate the child of our own acts. And from the furrows labored by our will, we reap the fruit of our forgotten deeds. But since, he explains it, but since unseen the tree that bore this fruit, and we live in a present born from an unknown past, they seem but parts of a mechanic force to a mechanic mind tied by earth's laws. But we don't know our own past. We haven't seen these karmas. So it all looks as if there is a mechanical law that is operating in our lives. Yet are they instruments of a will supreme. They're all instruments. There is a supreme will which works through our karma. Watched by a still all-seeing eye above, a prescient architect of fate and chance, who builds our lives on a foreseen design, the meaning knows and consequence of each step, and watches the inferior stumbling powers. Upon her silent heights she was aware of a calm presence throned above her brows, who saw the goal and chose each fateful curve. Savitri was now aware of some Godhead, some power, who was sitting above her and guiding each turn, as it were, of the chariot. Upon her silent height she was aware of a calm presence throned above her brows, who saw the goal and chose each fateful curve. It used the body for its pedestal. The eyes that wandered were its searchlights. The hands that held the rein, its living tools. All was the working of an ancient plan, a way proposed by an unerring guide. Now, he has already done two things. First of all, on the first page, on page 377, he tells us this is not Savitri's journey for the first time. Savitri remembers she has performed these journeys before. And then he says, in all these matters where you think everything is casual, nothing is really casual. Destiny, and behind the destiny, there is a supreme will. They all work. At every step, every stumbling, every fall is foreseen. And so this is how life is lived, and there is nothing here that is really casual or accidental. Then he goes on, he is taking this opportunity. He didn't really have to bring these things in. Simply he could have said, Savitri set out. But he makes it a point to bring these two issues together. Then he goes on to describe what you and I would describe. Where did she go? What are the various things she saw? Page 379. At first, her path ran through peopled tracts. First, her chariot ran through cities, towns, palaces, admitted to the lion eye of states and theatres of the loud act of man. Her carven chariot, with its fretted wheels, threaded through clamorous marts and sentinel towers, past figured gates and high dream-sculptured fronts, and gardens sung in the sapphire of the skies, pillared assembly halls with armored guards, small fanes where one calm image watched man's life, and temples hewn as if by exiled gods to imitate their lost eternity. So he's describing Savitri's journey. Sometimes her chariot passed through high roads, royal palaces, at other times a small wayside temple, often from gilded dusk to argent dawn, where jewel lamps flickered on frescoed walls, and the stone lattice stared at moonlit buffs, half conscious of the tardy listening night. Dimly she glided between banks of sleep. At rest in the slumbering palaces of kings, hamlet and village saw the fate wane pass, homes of a life bent to the soil it ploughs for sustenance of its short and passing days, that transient keep their old repeated course. Away from this thinking creature's burdened hours, to free and griefless spaces now she turned, not yet perturbed by human joys and fears. First, she went through towns, she went through villages, then now she is moving out into the forest areas. Here, timeless musings, large and grand and still, men had forborne as yet to fill with cares. And end of that page, he says, hastened the chariot of the golden bride. It goes on. Now, next page, 381, Sri Aurobindo describes how the chariot passes through forest hermitage. Various kinds of saints, munis, rishis lived in these forests, and Savitri's chariot goes through this area. Page 381, middle of that page. The strong king sages, from their labor done, freed from the warrior tension of their task, came to her serene sessions in these wilds. Many kings had assembled there for their vanaprastha. People who had retired from their kingly duties had set up ashrams and were living in these forests. The strife was over. All the strife, the struggle of life was over, and the respite lay in front. They came here to rest. The respite lay in front. Happy they lived with birds and beasts and flowers and sunlight and the rustle of the leaves, and heard the wild winds wandering in the night, mused with the stars in their mute constant ranks, and lodged in the mornings as in azure tents, and with the glory of the noons were one. Some came there just to retire because they had done with whatever they had to do, all the responsibilities they had taken care of. But some came, lived in these hermitages for a deeper purpose. He says, some deeper plunged from life's external clasp, beckoned into a fiery privacy. In the soul's unprofaned star-white recess, they sojourned with an ever-living bliss. Some came there, not just for retirement, but in search of bliss which lies within oneself. A voice profound in the ecstasy and the hush, they heard, beheld an all-revealing light. All time-made difference they overcame. The world was fibered with their own heartstrings, close drawn to the heart that beats in every breast. They reached the one self in all through boundless love. Next page, I'll read a little bit. Then she goes through areas where the ascetics live. These are all rishis. Then there are ascetics. Page 382, about 5-6 lines from the top. Nameless, the austere ascetics without home, abandoning speech and motion and desire. These ascetics had not only given up desire, they had also given up speech, motion. They were not even moving around. They were all glued to one place, either standing or sitting, aloof from creatures, sat, absorbed, alone, immaculate in tranquil heights of self, on concentration's luminous, voiceless peaks. World-naked hermits with their matted hair, immobile as the passionate great hills, around them grouped like thoughts of some vast mood awaiting the infinite's behest to end. Next page. There are various descriptions, various kinds of hermitages through which Savitri's chariot is going. One soul to all and free from narrowing bonds, large like a continent of warm sunshine, in wide equality's impartial joy. These sages breathed for God's delight in things. So some of these places were occupied by sages who had the highest realization. What were the sages doing? What were the rishis doing? Assisting the slow entry of the gods. This was the ideal of the Vedic rishi who lived in the midst of man, in the midst of society, and he turned his spiritual effort not to deny life, not to ignore life, but to enrich life, to perfect life. They invoked the gods to descend in them. So this is what they are doing. These sages breathed for God's delight in things, assisting the slow entry of the gods. Sowing in young minds immortal thoughts they lived, taught the great truth to which man's race must rise, or opened the gates of a freedom to a few. A few lines down the same page. A magic happiness flowed from their touch. Oneness was sovereign in that sylvan peace. We have heard in the Ramayana and Mahabharata where some of these rishis lived. Their animals, traditionally hostile to each other, forgot their enmity and lived like friends. So Sri Aurobindo is also referring to that. The wild beast joined in friendship with its prey. So the wild beast joined in friendship, which is with normally other animals which are its prey, persuading the hatred and the strife to cease. The love that flows from the one mother's breast, healed with their hearts the hard and wounded world. Then talks about rishis, the kind of speech. Rishis here, rishis are sages who hear mantras, and there is a beautiful description of what mantra is like. What mantra does we have already seen. But what exactly is mantra? How do you define a mantra? Sri Aurobindo doesn't leave anything. He attempts that also, a beautiful description of what mantric poetry is like. Here he says, about 6-7 lines down from where we stopped, intuitive knowledge leaping into speech. Mantra is intuitive knowledge leaping into speech, seized, vibrant, kindling with the inspired word, hearing the subtle voice that clothes the heavens, carrying the splendor that has lit the suns. The mantric words bring with them the splendor that has lit the sun, that has ignited the suns. They sang infinity's names and deathless powers in meters that reflect the moving worlds. In the rhythm, they catch the vibration as if were of the planets of the moving world. The rhythm of the world's movement of the planets is caught by the mantra in its rhythm. Sights, sound waves breaking from the soul's great deeps. He says sights, sound waves. Mantra is the sights, sound waves. It comes as a sound wave, but actually it is an embodiment of a vision seen by a Rishi. What Rishi sees, it gets transformed into sound. So sights, sound waves, breaking. Where does this come from? Breaking from the soul's great deeps. It comes from the deeps, from the ocean of the poet's heart. So these little beauties Sri Aurobindo has packed in this particular chapter, and these chapters generally remain unread, not talked about, because the people feel there is not much philosophy here. But why do you need philosophy? Poetry itself is your very rich recompense. It's wonderful here, very relaxed. You don't have to wonder, did I miss anything? Did I miss some very serious point? It's relaxing, nice, great poetry. And listen to the ease of this. It's like a stream flowing placidly. 384, the new section begins, as floats a sunbeam through a shady place, the golden virgin in her carven car came gliding among meditation seats, often in twilight, mid returning troops of cattle thickening with their dust the shades. Sometimes it's the Godhuli Muhurtam, cattle thickening with their dust the shades, when the loud day had slipped below the verge. Arriving in a peaceful hermit grove, she rested, drawing round her like a cloak its spirit of patient muse and potent prayer. Or near to a lion river's tawny mane, and trees that worshipped on a praying shore, a domed and templed air's serene repose beckoned to her hurrying wheels to stay their speed. So, as she was traveling, sometimes she spent the night in a temple, at other times she spent the night underneath a tree. Then trees that worshipped on a praying shore, a domed and templed air's serene repose, beckoned to her hurrying wheels to stay their speed. In the solemnity of a space that seemed a mind remembering ancient silences, where to the heart great bygone voices called, and the large liberty of brooding seers had left the long impress of their soul seen, awake in candid dawn or darkness mooned, to the still touch inclined the daughter of flame, drank in hushed splendor between the tranquil lids, and felt the kinship of the eternal calm. Yet, what was Savitri doing? What was Savitri supposed to do? She was supposed to go out, travel in the world, open world, until she meets her destined companion for life. How does she recognize him? Does he have a name? Does he have a shape? Her father had told her, your soul will guide you. So she has been traveling now for a whole year, and the poet says on page 385, last couple of lines, still she found not the one predestined face. The journey she has been going round and round, but she has not yet found the one predestined face for which she sought amid the sons of men. So until we come to this chapter, there is no sign of this waiting lover, unknown lover. For that, we have to go on to the next book, the book of love. And in order to assure us, the very first line he says, but now you won't have to wait very long. The destined spot and hour were close. The poet says, hold your breath. Don't get impatient. Now Savitri is coming to a point where the destined spot and the hour were close. Now, he is about to bring to you the most dramatic scene where Savitri sees this unknown young man. But before that, the scene has to be prepared. And how does Sri Aurobindo go about it? Same page, page 389. To a space, middle of that page, to a space she came of soft and delicate air that seemed a sanctuary of youth and joy. That place somehow looked like a sanctuary of youth and joy, a highland world of free and green delight. What season was it? What time of the year was it? He describes where spring and summer lay together and strove in indolent and amicable debate, where spring and summer were debating with each other about as to whose time it was, whether it was time for spring or time for summer. Where spring and summer lay together, they lay together and strove with each other, struggled with each other. Summer and spring were struggling with each other in indolent and amicable debate, enarmed, disputing with laughter who should rule, whether spring should rule or summer should rule. That was the season, that was the place. Down the same line, same page, a sigh was 3 lines from the bottom. A sigh was straying among happy leaves, cool, perfumed with slow, pleasure-burdened feet. Faint, stumbling breezes faltered among flowers. The white crane stood, a vivid, motionless streak. Peacock and parrot jeweled soil and tree. The dove's soft moan enriched the enamored air, and fire-winged wild drakes swan in silvery pools. Earth couched alone. How he creates the mood. She is now preparing for that time when Savitri and Satyavan are coming together. He says, earth couched alone with her great lover, heaven. Earth couched alone with her great lover, heaven. And what was heaven doing? Uncovered to her consort's azure eye. Heaven was intensely looking at the beautiful body of this earth, uncovered to her consort's azure eye. 391, middle of that page, now we are very close. This was the scene which the ambiguous mother had chosen for her brief, felicitous hour. Here, in this solitude, far from the world, her part she began in the world's joy and strife. Here were disclosed to her the mystic courts, the lurking doors of beauty and surprise. the wings that murmur in the golden house, the temple of sweetness and the fiery isle, a stranger on the sorrowful roads of time, immortal under the yoke of death and fate, a sacrificant of the bliss and pain of the spheres, love in the wilderness met Savitri. Here we have now prepared the place, the time, everything. We need a break to come back and meet Satyavan.